Hello, dear friends. It is always difficult to start morning lecture after such an emotional intro that we just had. This is a privilege for those that come to bleed, because there are some things that we cannot stream online, okay? However, we can definitely stream online the keynote lectures, and so I am kindly inviting Eva Cedilnik Group to make her keynote on why don't we want to lead. Eva, please.
Yes. Thank you, Isna. Yes, I too am still slightly emotional after what we have just seen. I wish you could have...
Do you agree that the speaker is without mask?
Okay. Right. And it was so pretty pink one. Especially chosen. Yeah. Right then, it's best to just start. My name is Eva Gorup, like Visna already said. I'm a GP. I'm also part of the Department of Family Medicine and Medical Faculty in Ljubljana. I'm honored and also excited and terrified because this is my first lecture here in Bled. And last year when we determined what would be the theme of this year's Bled course, I started thinking about leadership, and I started thinking about my experiences with leadership. This is the healthcare center where I work in Vrhnika, the small city near Ljubljana. I've been working there since 2011. And in 2018, our healthcare leader started to talk about retiring. And then our boss, our manager, director, called me to his office and asked me to take her place. And I experienced a moment of adrenaline-filled panic. I didn't think I could do that. I thought I was not smart enough. I was not competent enough. I was not skilled enough. I didn't know what leaders did. I basically happily went to work, and there were times when I was hanging by my fingernails as it was, already doing things I was doing. I was completely unprepared to take it. And if there was anyone else who could take it, I wouldn't have taken it. But there was nobody else. Everybody else was delighted for me to take it, and they were perfectly happy not to do it themselves. And it turns out that the doctors don't want to lead, typically. So I was thinking I would explore in this talk what are our reluctance, what are the reasons for our reluctance to lead? Are there concepts about leadership that we have got wrong? Do we realize that as family doctors and teachers, we already have many skills that we need for leadership? Maybe we should be more aware what leadership can achieve concerning things that matter to us. And knowing all that, I would like us to think about how we can overcome those barriers against leading in ourselves, and in how we could encourage our trainees and young doctors to become leaders. And this is, I believe, is what Alan will talk about tomorrow. So, as I said, doctors don't want to lead, and reluctance to lead turns out to be prevalent among doctors. Peter Lees in Clinical Medicine 2016 said that medical leadership is neither widely respected nor popular with the profession. Doctors evade leadership and are underrepresented in medical organizations in leadership positions. And despite the fact that research shows that this disconnection between doctors and leadership in healthcare organizations is not good for patients. And there is growing body of evidence that both medical engagement with organizations and good leadership have positive impact on quality of care. This is Belisarius refusing the crown of Rome offered to him by the gods. And the fact is that many doctors don't actually feel, for many doctors, it is not lack of leadership skills that prevents them from taking leadership roles. Instead, it is the role itself that holds no appeal to them. They see their medical leaders, they want to keep working in medicine, they don't want to lose touch with the profession, and then they see those leaders who do both. They see their heavy workload, they see their fight for resources that are always inadequate, they see their lack of respect for management, and they don't find it something that they want to do. But reluctant leader is not just something that is just in medical profession, far from it. Many business journals and business sites and blogs deal with reluctant leader. They recognize as reluctant leader as someone who is actually passionate about what they do and what their organizations do. They want their organization to do well and meaningful work. And they are genuinely well-meaning, they are genuinely want to do the best for their collective. However, they don't see themselves as leaders. They refuse leadership positions and they want to stay in their position, do what they do, and don't want things to change. In popular wisdom, in popular blogs, explore these reasons for reluctance to lead. And for most people, it's fear. We step out of comfort zone when we are leading. For many people, it's lack of opportunity. They don't see the opportunities to lead, and they don't even see the opportunities when their leadership or engagement could make an impact. They feel they do not have enough knowledge or experience, and for people who experienced previous failure, it's hard to start leading again. And here we have Cincinnatus, who had to be convinced, fetched from the plough, from the fields, so he could come and dictate laws to Rome and become the ruler. So how to identify reluctant leaders around you? Very often those are people who, like I said, are passionate about what they're doing and about their teams doing well. They often already lead maybe small projects or some initiatives they are passionate about. But when invited to lead, they pull back. They cite maybe bad experiences with leadership. They don't see leaders in a positive light. And they have to be convinced to undertake official leadership positions, even if unofficially or maybe subconsciously, they are already in such a position and looked up to by their peers. So here we have the parable of blind leading the blind, a sort of in vain leadership. And the thing is that another reason not to lead is that we may feel that we cannot achieve much. Healthcare is very rigidly controlled. It's hyper-regulated. It's a systemically rigid environment. And there are often bureaucratic obstacles that we have to overcome. There are policy imperatives that cannot be changed. And very often people simply feel there is nothing I can do. It doesn't matter if there is a leader or if there isn't, because there's nothing you can actually influence and nothing you can actually achieve. In a Harvard Business Review in 2020, research identified 3 specific types of risk that deter people from stepping up to lead. First is the risk to interpersonal relationships. Basically, you feel that if you become a leader, your relationship with your colleagues will change. That was also the theme that in our group came up yesterday when somebody said they felt lonely as a leader. They felt that their relationship with their peers have changed when they became a leader. Then it is a risk to our image. We leading others might make others think badly of us. I don't want to seem like a know-it-all. You know, it can come off a little bit aggressive. And at the end, of course, the risk of being blamed. We are all afraid of failure, and we are afraid that if our collective fails for reasons that are beyond our influence, we might still be blamed for the collective failure. The topic of my talk is really basically our inner barriers to leadership, but I should still at least mention the outside barriers to leadership, even though this could be a topic for a whole entire talk and maybe whole entire Blade course. But yes, we should at least mention the role of one of those barriers is gender roles. Women are underrepresented in leadership roles in healthcare and also in other professions, even though they represent at least half or probably more than half workers in healthcare or in other professions. And there are probably many reasons for that. There are probably many reasons. Many of them may be connected to gender roles. Even when women are invited to lead, they often decide not to and cite that they would prefer to stay in their positions. They would prefer to have a better work and life balance. They would prefer to concentrate on their professional work. And when we, in research to outside barriers of leadership, regardless practically of age and of country of origin, women cite first lack of mentorship, challenges of balancing work and home, gender bias, and lack of assertiveness or confidence. And I want to concentrate maybe on gender bias. Basically, what happens is that people perceive an incongruity between gender role of a woman and the role of leadership. In other words, they feel that mostly, hopefully these days subconsciously or implicitly, not explicitly, but in some environments still also explicitly, that the way women should behave or act is not consistent with the way leaders should behave or act. This then influences matters in one way. This means that when women compete with men for leadership positions, they are often viewed less favorably. There is less belief that they can conform to the role of leadership the way they should. And when they do lead, their actions and their behaviors are also viewed less favorably than of men in comparable positions, because it is felt they are not conforming to their gender role the way they should. We should remember that the more this representation we have in our teams, the better it is. The problems are not just with women, or at least it's not just women who encounter problems in representation. There are also people who are from different cultural backgrounds than majority, people who get overlooked because of their gender orientation, because of sexual orientation, or because of their race or skin color. And we should, as GPs and as leaders or trainees or mentors of trainees, we should always remember that representation really matters. It does not matter just because of the groups people in leadership represent. But also the collective as a whole profits from diversity in leadership, because diverse people have different ways to approach long-standing problems that may seem intractable when we are set in our own ways of our own cultural or gender role background. Also, it is very important for our trainees to see different and diverse role models, because if they see role models that look like them, that have similar background or ideas than them, they may feel more empowered to take their leadership role. So, is it possible that we do have wrong ideas about leadership? We may perceive leader as somebody we don't want to be. People don't want to seem bossy. And they feel that lack of listening skills, and they don't want that the ability to listen, ability to be empathetic, ability to empower others, they feel that those are not leadership qualities. But are they really not leadership qualities, those? Are they really something that we don't want leader to have? So in 1991, this paper was published that I found about the ideal leader, what a medical leader should ideally be. And it's this whole long list about you have to have a broad perspective on healthcare, excellent communication skills, skilled at dealing with individuals or with groups, excellent skills in locating and managing resources, particularly comfortable with delayed gratification, and so on. It's a long list. And when you look at it, it looks a bit off-putting, doesn't it? It feels like if you're not a very special person, you need not apply, right? And yet, even after listing all that, even then, the author goes on that he believes that the characteristics that select for people who want to become family physicians are very often the same characteristics that make them good leaders. And even then he argues that we, family physicians, should undertake upon ourselves to assume leadership positions when they offer themselves, because our representation is important. And I want you to hold to that thought about our characteristics, because I will return to that later. It turns out that actually some reluctance to lead is a good thing. It turns out that it seems that reluctant bosses are better at navigating office politics, better at maintaining control while also promoting autonomy, and they also garner respect because they came to their position by doing hard work in the trenches, and they seem more legitimate to other people. It is that true that reluctance is inconsistent with leader prototypes, and it may deter leader emergence because we feel that if you are reluctant, you are not suitable to be a leader. But that's not true. Reluctant leaders often take up leadership for a purpose that is bigger than themselves, for something more, and that also pulls other people behind them. And because they're aware of their own limitations, they are sort of protected against a sense of entitlement or self-importance, so they are more likely not to be full of themselves. And they are also more committed to development of their leadership abilities because they feel they need it. And that means that they can progress together with teams they lead. In addition, in healthcare, we often face a bit different situations that maybe in business because we lead our peers. And leading peers is a bit different than leading, like I say, in business organizations. Typically, those leaders that are popular with peers are those that are seen as exemplary professionals. Clever people like to have people leading them who understand what they're going through. They want to have autonomy, and so they like leaders who grant them autonomy, while at the same time they appreciate the fact that leader gives us coherence and the direction into which we're going. They also appreciate leaders that they don't exhibit political behavior, that they are not seen dishonest or manipulative. That's very important. And that they view leadership as responsibility that should be shouldered by one of us. And so in peer organizations, so in healthcare, very often reluctant leaders are more appreciated than those that are perceived as ambitious and determined. Thankfully, in healthcare teams, you do not have to be Napoleon. You do not have to do it alone. In fact, it turned out that shared leadership in healthcare teams predicts better team effectiveness. This does not mean that there is no strict leadership or that there's no determined leader in a team. But it does mean that leadership can smoothly flow from one member to another when the task at hand requires their expertise. So it's in some way more democratic leadership. And this has been described as collective leadership. It has been researched in NHS, Alan, a lot. It's a sort of a collective leadership culture that is characterized by shared leadership, by constantly swirling mix of changes in leadership and followership, depending on the task at hand, depending on the unfolding situational changes. That does not mean there is not hierarchy in the team. There is hierarchy, and we do know who is the ultimate leader. But there is a sort of democratic fluidity that enables everyone to take up the lead, to give their input, to participate when, like I say, their expertise is the one that is needed. And you don't need to be a hero. We should move beyond that hero archetype of leader. Like here when we see Hercules in his Herculean task of giving his cat a pill. We don't need that. We don't actually want that. We see leader as somebody who stands alone, who takes risk for others, who is infallible. But this is not who leaders are, and it is not who, at least in healthcare, they should be. It's okay to be vulnerable as a leader, and it's okay to reach out and ask for help, especially if that makes us more inclusive. If we can spot the need to rest, to take a break in ourselves, we can maybe spot it also in our team. And we can, especially in these stressful times of the pandemic, of the prevailing burnout in our teams, this is very important. So you don't have to be a hero. And you need to remember, I said I would return to those characteristics that we family physicians already have. I got this from a site, Target Jobs, and those are the key skills for general practitioners. It starts with ability to work long hours, often under pressure. I feel this may not be the most inviting thing I have ever seen. But the fact is that our abilities and our characteristics are already what we need as leaders. We already know how to elicit people's stories from them. We are able to find them out, and we are able to find out what matters to people, and we are trained in motivational interviews. We already lead our patients, and we do lead our teams. And, but being conscious about it, exploring this leadership, teaching and learning about leadership enables us to lead in a way that is consistent with what we are and what we want to achieve. This is primary colors leadership paradigm. As you can see, it's their strategic domain, interpersonal domain, and operational domain. Basically, you can think about that as strategic domain, something that brains do, interpersonal domain, something that heart does, and operational domain, something that hands do. And if leadership is about change, leadership means that we want to achieve some change, and for that we need all three primary colors. And it's important for us, if you want to be a leader, to find out where we are strongest, which is our strongest area. And if you want to develop, it's maybe best to focus on neighboring areas where that overlap with other domains that we may not be so strong in. But even so, it's pretty clear that nobody can be all three together. Nobody can excel in all three domains at once. And that is another thing that is important in healthcare leadership, and that is that you do not have to do it alone. You have the team. You have to use your limits, and complete teams are made of incomplete people. Your people complete you. But to achieve that, what you need is to be honest with your team and with your team members. You have to encourage them to participate, and you have to empower them to grow in their own strengths. And then we all grow together, and we all become a functional team. So that enabling people to grow is an important facet of our leadership. So we went through those reasons why we might not want to lead. And yet we come to the last and maybe most important, and that is, do we actually how do we find motivation? How do we make ourselves want to lead? What is this that could motivate us? because the fact is that leadership is important. There is clear leadership. There is clear evidence of the link between leadership and the range of important outcomes within health services, including patient satisfaction, patient mortality, organizational financial performance, staff well-being, engagement, turnover and absenteeism, and overall quality of care. It's important that we have leaders, that we have good medical leaders. Especially it matters because you manage things and you lead people. And it especially matters when we need to question, are we doing the right thing or are we doing things right? Because if we have to decide whether we are doing the right thing, we need leadership. It's important when the problem can't be fixed with a technical fix, but we have to change in the depth. And it's important when we need people's engagement to generate ideas or attempt different ways of doing things, not just their effort. And this pandemic is a primary example of that. Primary example of time when all of us who were involved had to suddenly step up and lead our teams, be leaders, because we had to change the way we were doing things. We have to consider how to change working in the field, working in the emergency care, working in our surgeries. Everything had to be fluid and changeable depending on emerging knowledge about the virus and the emerging facts of the pandemics that were coming. Maybe each week, each day, there was something new. And so, as leaders, what is important is that we remember what leadership can accomplish, and to do that, we have to realize what is important for our community. What is this that we want to strive for? What are our core values? Once we have those core values, we know where to go, what is our direction, and then we can develop our aims and strategies. But if we are unclear about our core values or our vision, we will not go very far, and we risk a disengagement that leads to burnout, to work dissatisfaction, and to overall low quality results in healthcare. This is so this is important. And does this mean that we need to be a visionary? How do we find this vision? It connects us to something bigger than ourselves. It has to open possibilities, not narrow them down, so it should not be too specific. We should talk about it often enough to maintain motivation, to remember what it is that matters to us, and we should periodically check, are we still doing the right thing? And it's not that we need to give vision to others. It's more than we should take the time and trouble to explore with our teams and community what it is that means to them, what is their why, what is their motivation to do things. That creates ownership and empowerment, and that gives motivation to us and our teams, and helps us do what we are doing with passion, and energizes us instead of exhausting us. So this is what I would like to end with. Leadership is not what you are. You don't have to be some special, this particular person that has been written, a written job description from some impossibly perfect paper. It's what you do to achieve a goal that you're passionate for. So wishing you lots of passion.
When I was asked to lead the discussion session, I said, no, I really don't want to do that. Maybe somebody else should do it. I'm kind of reluctant to lead this session. But then I realized I would have the privilege to thank you for this brilliant intervention. Now, I understand that you've been a course director in Bled for many, many years,
Yeah.
and you have a lot of experience, certainly in giving the Ribno lectures. So it really shows your experience and your thoughtfulness and your heart and your head and your hands. So really, really wonderful. I'm going to demonstrate leadership in giving autonomy to the listeners to allow them, but please don't go away because we need you here. But again, I love the way you use the classical images, the Italian Renaissance paintings. And may I borrow some of your slides? May I use your slides?
Absolutely.
Because what I have to do is I have to go home and look up some of the stories. I don't know some of the stories of the saints and the historical figures from Roman mythology. I know the one about giving ivermectin to the cat for the deworming, but I need to study a little more because some of those classical allusions really connect us to historical figures who grappled with it. So we need to know where we came from.
It's a sort of universal experience.
Thank you. Now let's open it up. Yes, please.
Yes. Okay, two things. One short observation of personal experience about leadership. I was very reluctant when I was offered to become a leader of general manager of our healthcare center 15 years ago, but or more. But that was after I accepted it. It was my best experience and most ritual experience this 3.5 years. But the most common maybe obstacle for doctors in small surroundings, small areas, towns in Slovenia, are political influence. That was my personal experience because. As a local manager, you must listen to local politic and their wishes and so on. And involvement of politic in healthcare is not good. It's definitely that's the very big. It was very big obstacle for me, and that was the main reason I left it and go in private practice. And that's my personal experience. The question is about this gender division. Because we have a big movement about binary, non-binary persons. We are not divided in modern times only to men and women, but we have also different sexual orientation and so on. And haven't you find something about that in literature? When we are talking, we must be politically correct.
Yeah, no, I didn't specifically seek for that because, like I say, I didn't want to focus so much on the external barriers, but on what we internally face. But what I think that the main problem remains the same, that there are these implicit beliefs about the gender roles and gender roles that remain the same, even though we are starting to recognize that that this may not be reality for everyone with whom we work, and it remains the same. When people don't conform to the role that is set for them in their surroundings, in their co-workers, in their environment, in people they meet, in their family, they run into problems. And if the gender role they're assigned by exterior is not congruent with leadership, then they have low likelihood to be chosen as leaders, or at least lower than if they were, I don't know, like I don't know who yesterday said white male. Okay.
Poldy, please. Yes, Poldy, would you?
First, I would like to congratulate you for this really brilliant lecture. Such a young doctor, lady. No, look. Lady, mother, and such a leader. It was my way. It was my story. And I can speak now like a leader with a 26 years history leading. If you will do like you said to us, how we should do, and what's the right way, and I'm sure you are doing that. for sure you will be excellent leader, and I wish to be many such leaders in Slovenia.
Yes, there's a comment in the back, if you want to pass this to the back.
Hello. When you are speaking about reluctance to leadership, there was very interesting in the reference Eisenhower quote.
Yeah.
Happy to serve, but reluctant to lead. In this course, up to now, or I didn't. It was really that being a leader is also being serving your team or your organization. Like minister in the government, minister is from Latin for servant. So it's like a job to do. If they ask you to be a leader, it's a job to do, and you do it as best as you can. And when they say we don't need you anymore, then you don't, then you resign or whatever. But is there this danger that if everybody is reluctant to lead, they just say to you, you are okay, be a leader for, I don't know, 20, 30, I don't know how many years. When to really to see, to open for others, so that it's not just,
Yeah.
So
I think that is the problem that we are facing. Yes, one is this passivity that we see often in students, in trainees, that people are just not engaged. And yes, of course, there's always a danger that, at least I think that many of us who came into this position of leadership feel that they've been pushed in by others because they said anybody's good enough just as long as I don't have to do it. But I think that we doctors are also people who have this way of thinking, well, somebody has to do it, and if not me, then who? And we accept this responsibility, just as we accept responsibility for our patients. If your team leader comes to you and says, we need somebody to go to the nursing home today, and we need somebody to cover it for emergency room tomorrow, and there's no one else, and you will say, okay.
We have time for one more question. I'm really excited about starting the small group discussion. You have the privilege of the last.
Thank you very much. I will be short. First, Eva, my great respect. I would like to say just a few words about the gender respect. I was a leader of a health center for 20 years, and I had great vision. I had great visions, and I did a lot as a mother, as a wife, as a doctor, as a leader. And then I suddenly feel that I'm a leader, I'm the boss, I'm the hero of my story, but people didn't like me anymore. I was very respected as a doctor, but as a leader, they didn't like me because I was a leader. So I decided to step down, and I don't regret this now. But I'm still asking, was it right that I stepped down? Because after 10 years when I stepped down, everything what I built fall down.
Thank you for that very provocative intervention, and I can't wait to talk about that as well in my small group and hear what my group has to say. Eva, again, hvala lepa. Thank you very much for that simulation.